Win big in 2023 with Team Sync from RotoBaller. Import your fantasy teams and sync your leagues. Get customized tools and tailored advice for your specific rosters and scoring settings, including live recommendations from the Live Draft Assistant, Free Agent Finder, and Lineup Optimizer. Sync an unlimited amount of NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL fantasy teams from all of the major fantasy platforms. Get a discount for any premium pass using my code KNUCKLER. That's KNUCKLER, as in one who throws knuckleballs. Just visit rotoballer.com/radio and start rotoballing like a boss. Hey, and what's up, everybody? This is Brady Grove bringing you episode 96 of RotoBaller's official MMA podcast, Tap That. We are looking forward to UFC Vegas 73 this weekend. And, just one note of news from this past week. Francis Ngannou signed with PFL. He's going to be the chair of PFL Africa. He's getting a lot of money. There's a lot of questions about who he's going to fight. I'm at least glad to see this play out. The questions of whether PFL, like many MMA organizations, can survive in spending so much money, depending on how many people are watching and how much ad revenue they're getting, all those sorts of things. I at least like to see the role that they have put Francis Ngannou in. Francis identified what he wanted. He went out and found somebody who would give it to him in exchange for him being a fighter under their banner. So, that's a cool thing to see play out. How it will play out, I have no idea. And anybody that thinks they do have an idea might be speculating. But this weekend, we have UFC Vegas 73. And by the way, folks, you can follow me on Twitter at RotoBrady. There's a bunch of big-time boxing action going down this weekend. I made all my picks for that on Twitter at RotoBrady. This card is going to start at 4 p.m. on Saturday. That means I will be in the RotoBaller MMA Discord from 2 to 3 p.m. doing the weekly DFS/sports betting Q&A. So show up, be there. Let's talk about this card. Go to Facebook and like that Facebook page for the Tap That MMA podcast. Go to YouTube. The channel is at Tap That MMA Podcast. I've had a bunch of awesome interlude episodes that I'm really proud of come out over the last few weeks. We got more coming up. And check out my USFL betting content that comes out weekly. Week 6 is what we're looking forward to on Saturday. We just had 4 upsets this past week. Now that the XFL is over and my South Division favorite team, the Arlington Renegades, are the XFL champions, now we turn our sights 100% to the USFL in the alternative football world until the Canadian and European seasons start in the summer. We got the WNBA starting tomorrow, which will be tonight if you're listening when this comes out. If you're into the wide world of sports, it's a good time to be paying attention. But let's talk about UFC Vegas 73. There's 12 fights. I'll tell you, the main event is one that people are not going to be very excited about. Consult the internet. I'm sure they're being vocal. The main event was supposed to be Raquel Pennington and Irene Aldana, but Irene Aldana got rebooked and she's fighting Amanda Nunes. Good for her. But we're left with the main event of Mackenzie Dern versus Angela Hill at strawweight, but let's work our way up from the bottom of the card. At welterweight, Takashi Sato and Themba Gorimbo. At women's flyweight, Victoria Leonardo and Natalia Silva. Love Natalia Silva. Chase Hooper, a divisive character as young as he is in the UFC, against Nick Fiore in a lightweight matchup. Yair Latifi, everybody's favorite, we'll get to that. Yair Latifi, he's fighting Rodrigo Nascimento, the 9-1, number 25 in the world at heavyweight, according to Tapology, at 265 pounds. Orion Sose versus Gilbert Urbina, that's a welterweight fight. Women's strawweight, Carolina Kowalkiewicz, going in again against Vanessa Demopoulos at strawweight. At 155 pounds, Mahashate versus Vyacheslav Borshev. At lightweight, Michael Johnson, 21-18, going against Diego Ferreira. Welterweight again. Someone's going to sleep here, probably. Andre Fiallo versus Joaquin Buckley. Women's catchweight, 120 pounds. Emily Ducote and Lupita Godinez. The co-main event, it's middleweight. I'm excited for it. It's not going to get a bunch of credit, but it is Edmund Shabazian against Anthony Hernandez. And then the main event, Mackenzie Dern versus Angela Hill at 115 pounds. So, that's 12 fights. Let's start with Takashi Sato and Themba Gorimbo. Now, oh, and by the way, LFA 158, that's on Friday. I'll be making my picks on Twitter for that as well. Takashi Sato, the plus 100 underdog. Themba Gorimbo, the minus 120 favorite. Takashi Sato has lost 3 in a row to Miguel Baeza, Gunnar Nelson, and Brian Battle. And really, in the aftermath of Gunnar Nelson and Brian Battle's last couple of fights, that's not like, that looks a lot better than it probably did. But the loss to Miguel Baeza, I usually can't get behind. But his other losses to Belal Muhammad, he has a win over Ben Saunders and Jason Witt, but those are his only 2 wins in the UFC. He was only born in 1990, though. Still pretty young. I don't know. Like, he's not old. Themba Gorimbo. He lost his UFC debut to AJ Fletcher by guillotine in the second round. Just to go a little bit deeper on Themba, 10-4. He is from Zimbabwe. That's cool to see. 32 years old, 76-inch reach. Came in via EFC Worldwide. I do respect that. He was their welterweight champion. And, like, something about it, you would think that he'd actually be, like, a knockout artist. He's not. He's mostly been winning by submission, like, throughout the entirety of his career, consistently. Oh, if Miguel Baeza can get him, it's talking about Takashi Sato, you know, I don't know. At some point, I think you have to look to Sato's wins. And, you know, he had losses to guys that look a lot better in hindsight. And I think that these two have kind of a clearer path to victory prop-wise. I think Themba actually wins this fight. I think he is the better talent, and I think ultimately has the higher ceiling here, and I think he can reach. I think he can achieve a higher ceiling than Takashi Sato here. I think that's a rough matchup for Takashi Sato to get, and maybe that loss won't even look too bad, you know, in the future if Themba continues on an upward trajectory. Themba by submission, plus 350. And I think he wins about 55 to 60 at these fights out of 100. So at minus 120, I don't hate him. Sato by TKO knockout plus 175. I do think that is probably the most likely individual outcome. So I don't hate Themba, minus 120. Next up, we got Natalia Silva and Victoria Leonardo. Silva is the minus 900 favorite. Leonardo the plus 575 underdog.
Don't do this. You cannot do this, you know?
That's rough. And Victoria Leonardo coming off a win against Mandy Bone July of last year by unanimous decision. She did get outstruck, but she did land 2 takedowns. It was, you know, that's how you win a round-by-round fight. Losses to Melissa Gatto and Manon Furio, both second-round knockouts. A win in the Contender Series dating back to November of 2020. Natalia Silva, though. This is one where I looked at the pro resume before the UFC, and you look at the combined record of the opponents, and it's like, this is very unproven. And then she goes and tears a hole through a friend of the Tap That podcast, Jasmine Jazz Duvicius. Outstrikes her 96-31, 2 takedowns. It was a dominant unanimous decision victory, and then gets a third-round knockout by spinning back fist her last time out November of last year against Teresa Bleda, outstriking her 45-18. She did get taken down once. Natalia Silva is not Mandy Bone. And I think that is the best kind of opponent that Victoria Leonardo could possibly beat in the UFC. I think that the 4 fights that she's had, I think, appropriately show off her ceiling. And unfortunately, I think this is a fight where she has been set up to get knocked out. I think Silva wins this fight like 85-90 times out of 100. She proved and has continued to prove that she is a great talent for this weight class. And she's not just your run-the-mill strawweight that is entering these ranks. Silva by TKO, flyweight, what was I saying? Not strawweight. Silva by TKO knockout. Plus 150? Hammer it! Ow! Hit that. That is a no-brainer. With Leonardo's last two losses coming by knockout, Silva is only getting better. So you can get plus money for Silva by TKO knockout. That's the most likely prop of the fight. I'm going to say hit it again. Ow! Next up, we got Chase Hooper and Nick Fiore. Chase Hooper is the plus 110 underdog. Fiore at the minus 135 favorite. Let's start with Fiore. Lost his debut in the UFC to Matus Rebecki. He got outstruck 89-34, taken down 3 times to 1 and round to a unanimous decision loss. He was born in 1997. He is very young. Chase Hooper was born in 1999. He's 2 years younger than me. And to think that a guy 2 years younger than me has 6 fights in the 7 fights in the UFC. This is going to be his 8th, and right now he has a winning record. This guy takes so much garbage from people. First of all, he was born in 1999. He's had this many fights, this many wins in the UFC. Regardless of the opponents that it came against, wins at the UFC level. And, you point out his deficiencies, and we blame him for the hype that we created. And, other guys do different things with this kind of hype. I think a similar thing was done to Sugar Sean O'Malley after the Cheeto loss. But, different levels of prospect there. But, that's the thing about prospects. You never know. When someone comes into the UFC at this age, what their timeline's going to be. Hell, look at Charles Oliveira. So, Chase Hooper has lost 2 of his last 3. A win against Felipe Colares. He outstruck him 60-21. Took him down 4 times to 2. TKO'd him in the 3rd. His 2 losses were to Steve Garcia and Steven Peterson. June of 2021, October of 2022. One was a UD loss, but most recently he was knocked out in the 1st round. He's had a problem with dudes named Steve. He got pieced up by Bruce Leroy. That's a terrible fight for him, in hindsight. The Alex Caceres fight is so obviously a fight that he was going to lose. And it concerns me that, I don't know. If you're Chase Hooper, you don't, in theory, you don't want to strike at all with anybody. You want to get fights against guys that you can just consistently take down. Chase Hooper has finished his last 3 wins as well. Do I think Fiore can do that? I don't know. Or can he do that against Fiore? I keep seeing winning from Chase Hooper. And so Fiore, he's young too. And he hasn't gotten a win in the UFC. He got taken on 3 times by Matus Rebecki. I don't know. I think this is a 50-50 fight based on what I've seen. And, I think that being at this level we're going to see an explosion by Chase Hooper, at least a leap up in a level. So I like him at plus 110. Chase Hooper inside the distance, plus 250. I feel safer with that than I do even by submission at plus 350. I think I think that inside the distance offers better reward for its likelihood. Next up, we got Ilir Latifi and Rodrigo Nascimento. Nascimento is the minus 200 favorite. Latifi the plus 165 underdog. This is one all right, let's start with Latifi. Look at his last 2 wins. All right. He landed 10 strikes and got 2 takedowns against Tanner Boser, who landed 45 strikes and won a split decision June of 2021. Now, and the way I remember that fight shaking out, it was like Ilir won, and you saw it coming. This guy has proven time and time again that he can take a fight to the brink with the least amount of statistical activity. And he can win fights at a comparable level. His last win was against Alexei Oleinik. He took him down 3 times and outstruck him 38-28. Rodrigo, though, he's 10 years younger. He's won 2 fights in a row, a knockout against Alan Badeau back in July of 2021, and a split decision over Tanner Boser, where he at least landed 36 strikes and took him down 3 times. Boser landed 62 strikes in a loss in a loss for Boser, September of 2022. He's 4-1 in the UFC, with another win over Dontel Mays by round 2 rear naked choke. Chris Daukaus is the one guy that has put him away by first round knockout October of 2020. I think Ayer is just a guy that if it takes kind of like a special circumstance almost to be able to put him away. Volkan is just highly skilled. That helps. That's how he put him away. But guys like Corey Anderson and Derek Lewis can't put Ayer Latifi away, despite how ahead of him they should be. Ayer Latifi's existence, the sledgehammer, is amazing for the level he's able to hang around and just like the minimal output. I actually respect it. It's how you have a long career in a brutal sport. Rodrigo, though, I think is a talent beyond Tanner Boser. I think especially what we've seen of Boser of late. Rodrigo, the one loss to Chris Daukaus, it was when Chris Daukaus still felt like he had some promise. Now, I think that this has been a good stretch. I think what he offers in overall power, striking, grappling, I think it's going to be too much for Ayer to just grind out something. So I think Rodrigo wins this fight like 60, 65 times out of 100. I'm not touching a straight-up winner in this. I don't think minus 200 is good enough. But I do think Ayer is the kind of guy that brings it to the judges' scorecards and can make it ugly if you don't have the ability to put him away. And it takes sometimes a devastating talent to do so. Nascimento, by decision, plus 175 hit it. Ow! Next up, we got Orion Sosay and Gilbert Urbina. Gilbert Urbina, who we last saw August of 2021 losing to Brian Battle in the finale of The Ultimate Fighter. Urbina is the plus 100 underdog. Orion Sosay, the minus 120 favorite. The Urbinas, they're a fighting family. Let's start with Orion Sosay. Got to be a constellation joke in there. It's a crazy name, Orion Sosay. Born in 1994, by the way. 2-1 in the UFC. Won a Contender Series fight by third round knockout over Matt Dixon August of 2020. His only losses to Phil Rowe came by second round knockout July 2021. He did land 2 takedowns against Phil Rowe. And then a win his last time out against Blood Diamond. That guy, that's his name now. It was a unanimous decision. He got outstruck 63-25, but he did land 3 takedowns. Now, I like Gilbert Urbina, but why is this even handicapped as close as it is? Gilbert Urbina is a good fighter. But I think that, especially from what we've seen of the likes of Tresean Gore, I believe in Brian Battle. I don't believe in a whole lot else from that division class in that Ultimate Fighter season. And really, I believe more in Brady Hiestand at this point than I do in Ricky Tercios. Speaking elsewhere of that season, I think Orion Sosay is rightfully the favorite. I think he should be more favored. You get 2 wins out of a guy in the UFC. Gilbert, we haven't even seen since August of 2021 at the UFC level. He's still only 6-2 as a professional. Granted, he's 27 years old. I can respect that. His last win, though, came in May of 2021 when he beat Michael Gilmore, the replacement on that season. I haven't seen anything from Gilbert Urbina to make me think that he is truly deserving of this level. I think Orion Sosay wins this fight 65 times out of 100. Minus 120, hit it. Ow! And not to mention, Gilbert Urbina has been stopped his last 2 fights. And, maybe this goes to decision. I could see Gilbert Urbina, even beating Sosay, in statistical striking numbers, but Sosay still getting a win like he did against Blood Diamond with his 3 takedowns. I think Orion Sosay is a better mixed martial artist. And I think this is handicapped way too close. So I'm happy with minus 120. But Sosay by decision, maybe Gilbert survives this. That's a plus 225. Sosay inside the distance, plus 190. I actually do think Sosay inside the distance, plus 190 is a better value. Hit it. Ow! Next up, we got Carolina Kowalkiewicz and Vanessa Demopoulos in a women's strawweight matchup.
Don't do this. You cannot do this, you know?
Carolina Kowalkiewicz, she is the minus 135 favorite. Vanessa Demopoulos is the plus 110 underdog. Well, let's start with Carolina then. Carolina has now won 2 fights in a row. It's insane. And it started with that rematch against Felice Herrig from a fight that happened in April of 2018. She lost 5 in a row to Jessica Andrade, Michelle Waterson-Gomez, Alexa Grasso, Yan Xiaonan, and Jessica Penne. That seemed to be like the end, but you really look back, and that is it'd be really impressive if she got a win against any of those fighters. She'd probably still be in really good standing in the strawweight division. That is the nature of that weight class. Now she's won 2 in a row, a rear naked choke win over Felice Herrig, and a unanimous decision victory over Silvana Gomez-Juarez. She got outstruck 77-74 in that fight, but she got 2 takedowns. Vanessa Demopoulos, on the other hand, only 3 years younger. She has won 3 in a row. And let me see if those all came in the UFC. She's 9-4 as a professional, 34 years old. Yeah, her last 2 fights in the UFC, both decision victories over Jinyu Frey and Maria Oliveira. Did she have one in between? No. 3 fights in a row in the UFC. She's won all 3. What? Yeah. She lost her first 2 in the UFC. Decision losses to Corey McKenna and J.J. Aldrich. Then won a round 1 armbar victory over Silvana Gomez-Juarez. 2 straight decision victories over Jinyu Frey and Maria Oliveira. That's crazy. These fighters both seem like they're in so much worse position coming into this fight. They're both riding winning streaks, combining for 5 wins in a row between them. And, Vanessa Demopoulos had 3 wins in 2022. This fight is actually pretty good.
Break out the red panties.
Out of kind of nowhere. So... But I do think this is about a 50-50 fight. Demopoulos has won 3 in a row, and in impressive fashion. I think that what she demonstrated is, like Carolina Kowalkiewicz, she can win the fight in multiple ways. I just like the activity more of Vanessa. I like the fact that she's slightly younger. She has won more fights in a row. Carolina, you can give her all the credit in the world for only losing to great fighters, but the fact is she took a lot of damage and a lot of beatings and hard losses over that stretch. She got 2 wins after she's landed a combined 156 significant just strikes over those 2 fights. That's very impressive. But I think comparing these two's their recent resumes, I think you got to say that Demopoulos has just as good a chance of winning this fight as Carolina does. So at plus 110, I love Vanessa Demopoulos. Hit it. And I think she has a clear path to victory. I think Carolina has more of a possibility of winning inside the distance, that a greater share of her victories would come inside the distance. I think Vanessa wins this by decision, plus 225, best prop of the fight. Hit it. Ow! Next up, we got Maheshate and Vyacheslav Borshev at lightweight. Borshev is the minus 160 favorite. Maheshate, the plus 130 underdog. Maheshate lost his last fight to Rafa Garcia, who outstruck him 49-25 and took him down 6 times en route to a unanimous decision. That was December of 2022. But he had a unanimous decision win in a close fight with Achilles Estremadura in the Contender Series November of 2021. Got a first-round knockout against Steve Garcia June of 2022, and then loses that fight to Rafa Garcia. Vyacheslav Borshev, on the other hand, has lost 2 in a row. He won 2 in a row coming into the UFC, both by TKO, but has lost 2 straight to Mark Diakis, who took him down 11 times and Mike Davis, who took him down 9 times. All right. Real quick on Mark Diakais. I mean, he takes people down a lot. He took down Damir 8 times. Damir Hadzovic didn't take down Michael Johnson at all, which is nutty. He gets volume takedowns. I'll give him that. Mike Davis. He lands a lot of takedowns too, but never 9. He's landed 3 in a fight. Vyacheslav Borshev is concerningly easy to take down. The question is, like, will he do that with Mahashad? I think that, I don't know. Borshev's had his chance, and he got pieced up significantly in multiple ways by Diakais and Mike Davis. Dakota Bush and Chris Duncan, that's not enough. But Mahashate's win against Steve Garcia, and, Borshev isn't going to take him down 6 times. That's what Rafa Garcia did. And that, so far is what we have seen lead to a Mahashate loss in the UFC. So Mahashate, plus 130, I think he wins this fight 55 to 60 times out of 100. So on the money line, plus 130, Mahashate hit it. Ow! And as for how Borshev is going to lose, because I don't trust a dude that's getting taken down that many times, we've seen Mahashate just more successful of late, too. I think his wins mean more, but taken down 20 times combined by 2 dudes that, had their career takedown days against him, that is concerning. I think Mahashate just outstrikes him. The fight stays on the feet, and Mahashate wins a decision. Mahashate by decision is plus 400.
Break out the red panties.
That is the prop of the fight. And, if you're going with Borshev by TKO knockout plus 125, sure, that's the best prop for him, but I don't think it offers near the reward with the reward to probability ratio that Mahashate by decision does. Next up, we got a lightweight matchup between Diego Ferreira and Michael Johnson. Yes, that Michael Johnson. Diego Ferreira is the minus 165 favorite. Michael Johnson, the plus 135 underdog. Diego Ferreira has lost 3 in a row. And you're going to laugh when I tell you who is against. So he back from January of 2016 to January of 2020, he had a 6-fight winning streak that was capped with a win by rear naked choke against Anthony Showtime Pettis. Since then, he has lost 3 in a row. His last fight was December of 2021. His last 2 fights, he was knocked out. He lost a split decision to Beneil Dariush, February of 2021. Then to Gregor Gillespie. And over the last 3 fights, he's been taken down a combined 13 times. And then lost to Matus Gamrot by second-round knockout the last time out. Michael Johnson. He's actually a year younger. And he has won 2 of his last 3. So, obviously, this guy's fought everybody. I mean, he's fought Khabib and Justin Gaethje. He's fought Dustin Poirier. And by the way, he beat Dustin Poirier. He's fought Nate Diaz, Beneil Dariush, Edson Barboza, Melvin Gillard, Joe Lozon, Tony Ferguson, who he beat. Michael Johnson's career is an absolute enigma. He's been in the UFC since 2010. What a gift to the sport that guy has been. And he lost those 4 in a row in between March of 2019 and February of 2021 to Josh Emmett, Stevie Ray, Thiago Moises, and Clay Guida. But this guy stays active. And May of 2022 gets a second-round knockout over Alan Patrick. Then he loses a split decision to Jamie Malarkey. He got outstruck 96-66, but he did knock Malarkey down in that July 2022 fight at UFC Fight Night Dos Anjos versus Fiziev. Then, last time out against Mark Diakais, he outstrikes him 83-55, gets a unanimous decision victory. It's been a long time since we've seen Diego Ferreira win and fight. Michael Johnson, though, it's so hard to go against Michael Johnson. And really, him coming in winning 2 of the last 3. You know, Diego has mostly been put out by people who have taken him down a lot. But, you know, that's over that sample size that dates back to February of 2021. And really, besides that Anthony Pettis win, the names on his list, he's lost to good fighters. He's lost to Beneil Dariush twice. He lost to Dustin Poirier, but that was still a long time ago. It's so weird. This is a tough fight to call, but you know what? I think it's a 50-50 matchup. My heart and my head are ticking for Michael Johnson at plus 135. Hit it. And I think you have to think, I don't think that Michael Johnson puts Diego Ferreira away. If anything, you know, I think it could be a little similar to the numbers in the Mark Diakese fight. Maybe he does. Let's see. And I don't trust any recent result. The most recent results for Ferreira, it feels like a lifetime away. So I think the 2 best props of the fight, I think you have to go Johnson TKO knockout plus 325, Johnson by decision plus 350. I think those are probably, of his 50 wins out of 100, I think 25 happened by TKO knockout, 25 happened by decision. So go with the one that offers the highest reward, Johnson by decision plus 350. Hit it. And to Michael Johnson.
One comment, man. One comment.
No, don't be scared, homie. Come on.
You're Michael Johnson, man. You've done this plenty of times against way bigger names. The wins on his resume blow your mind. And to think how close this guy never was to a lightweight title shot or at featherweight. He tried it out at several weight classes. Still got to love him. Next up, we got Emily Ducote and Lupi Godinez at a 120-pound catch weight fight. Ducote, the plus 130 underdog. Godinez, the minus 160 favorite. Ducote lost her last time on to Angela Hill, got pieced up by Angela Hill, 182-71 on the striking, December of 2022. Her win in the UFC, she pieced up Jessica Penne by unanimous decision, 116-63 on the striking. Lupi Godinez, actually a year older, she has won 3 of her last 4. They both share a loss to Angela Hill over this past year. But her wins over Loma Lubunme by unanimous decision, Ariana Carnelosi by unanimous decision, and Cynthia Calvillo by split decision. You know, this is... Lupi lands good striking volume. But if you're someone who just wants to kickbox, she does not always agree to play that game. And, you know, she didn't even get a single takedown against Cynthia Calvillo. Still gets it on the judges' scorecards April of this year. But, you know, 13 combined takedowns against Loma and Ariana Carnelosi. Really? Let's see. Lupi minus 160. Yeah, I think she wins this fight 60 times out of 100. Minus 160, I kind of like her at that. I'd be willing to go with a straight-up victory there. But, you know, I think her last 5 fights have gone to the judges' scorecards. All but one of her fights in the UFC has gone to the judges' scorecards. Ducote, both her fights have gone the distance in the UFC. Lupi, by decision, minus 115. I like that. It's, you know... I mean, is it that much better than Lupi minus 160? Yeah, I guess it's the exact amount of value that you get back. But Ducote by decision plus 250. That could be a little bit, because I think that's how they both get it done. So it's crazy that it's so much, you know, more reward offered for Ducote as opposed to Lupi, but I would go with the fighter that I think wins the majority of the time here, and so I treat minus 115 for Lupi by decision as my pick for the winner. That means hit it. We move on to the co-main event of the evening. And it is a middleweight matchup. Anthony Hernandez versus Edmund Shabazian. Anthony Hernandez minus 210, the favorite. Edmund Shabazian, the plus 170 underdog. Anthony Hernandez has won 3 in a row, 4 of his last 5. That stretch includes a win over Jung Young Park by Anaconda choke back in August of 2019, a first-round knockout loss to Kevin Holland, May of 2020, then 3 straight wins, a guillotine choke against Rodolfo Vieira, impressive, Josh Friend, a unanimous decision victory who he took down 8 times, and then he got 8 takedowns en route to an arm triangle choke victory over Marc-Andre Barriault, September of 2022. Edmund Shabazian is actually 4 years younger than Anthony Hernandez, who is not an old fighter. Edmund, this is a guy, too, that I hate what we did to him. After he rose, after that victory over Brad Tavares and Jack Marshman, he had won 5 in a row to start off in the UFC. Super young guy. He then has to fight 3 of the, extremely tough names at middleweight. 2 rock-solid guys. Derek Brunson beat the tar out of him for, the entirety of 3 until it was mercifully put to an end. He took him down 4 times, outstruck him 88-35. That's one where the statistics don't even really come close to telling the story of that fight. He kind of gets, battered around by Jack Hermanson. Outstruck 55-40, taken down 3 times, then knocked out by Nasruddin Imavov. Then he takes some time off, gets right, comes back over a year later, and against Dolce Lungiambula, who it was essential that he looked better than in that fight, he did. He outstruck him 54-23 en route to a second-round knockout. Oh, man. This is the tough one, right? Like, is Anthony Hernandez closer to Dolce or Nasruddin Imavov? And how much improvement did you really see from Edmund Shabazian in that Dolce fight? What does that mean? And can he, is he continuing to make up that difference? I don't know. I think you still have to call Anthony Hernandez the better fighter. I love Edmund Shabazian, and I would say...
Nick, one comment, man. One comment.
No, don't be scared, homie. Come on.
Edmund should not be scared of this fight. This is a fight that he is capable of winning. I would love to see him win it, but I do think Anthony Hernandez wins this fight about 65 times, 70 times out of 100. I think for the winning streak he's on, the guys that he has put away, if Derek, I think Anthony Hernandez will get Edmund Shabazian down to the ground. And I think he might outstrike him too. I think Anthony Hernandez, I think this fight's going to be a lot more about what his potential is, or, who his next fight is going to be if he beats Edmund, unfortunately. But I would love to be wrong on that. So I think you go Anthony Hernandez. Anthony Hernandez is inside the distance. I don't know how. Hernandez inside the distance plus 120. I actually don't like that much. By decision is plus 250. I could see him outstriking Edmund 80-55, taking him down 4 times, calling it a night. Hernandez by decision plus 250. Edmund by decision plus 650. That's if it goes the other way. That's if, Edmund just wins on the feet, stays off the ground, outstrikes Anthony Hernandez, 75-85 to 50-60. I think by decision, I think that's the best prop for both of these guys in this fight. Hernandez by decision plus 250 is the best, though. But Edmund plus 650 by decision, not terrible at all. Within that range, hit something. And we are now to the main event of the evening. It is a women's strawweight matchup between Mackenzie Dern and Angela Hill to headline UFC Vegas 73. And here's the thing. So this was not supposed to be the main event. All the credit in the world to them. People are going to dog on this card. And Mackenzie Dern, when she is the main event on card, and it feels like it's happened a handful of times, it's not a big seller, but, this is going to be an interesting, and if you're interested in Mackenzie Dern, this is an important fight for the strawweight division. And so, it doesn't really matter to me the names on a card. If we're getting 12 fights in the UFC, I'm interested in what's going on. I think that's what you want to do if you love mixed martial arts and you're a mixed martial arts fan. You want to see a lot of high-level fights. And I think what you have to do is look at the talent around the world and expand your idea of what is considered a high-level fight, because there's a lot of high-level fighters out there. Now, let's get into the main event. Mackenzie Dern, the -175 favorite. Angela Hill, the +145 underdog. Let's start with Angela. God, I love Angela and all these characters at women's strawweight. She's now won 2 in a row. She had a rough stretch there, but she lost that 3 in a row. She's been super active since the start of 2020. A lot of fights, and 3 fights in 2022. So let's talk about 2022. She loses a unanimous decision victory to Amanda Lemos. That was in December 2021. That was a split decision loss. But then, unanimous decision loss to Virna Jandiroba. She outstruck Virna 21-14, but got taken down 3 times to 1 against Lupe Godinez. Unanimous decision victory, gets outstruck 92-85, 1 takedown each, round by round. She gets 2 of the 3. I believe that ended up being a 29-28 fight. And that's the kind of fighter that Angela Hill is. Like I've always said about the likes of Jan, up until she just got that knockout over Jessica Andrade, but Carla Esparza, Michelle Waterson-Gomez, these are fighters that are extremely good at getting their way on the judges' scorecards, and their skill set lends to fights going the distance. And on the right night, they can win a rightful split decision, or they can kind of steal a split decision when maybe they shouldn't have. But her last time out, Angela Hill outstruck Emily Dakota 182-71. Big time unanimous decision victory. And by the way, her last 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 fights dating back to February of 2020. That's how many times she's fought, by the way, since the year 2020. All of those fights went to the judges' scorecards. Mackenzie Dern. She's 8 years younger. She has lost 2 of her last 3. And granted, they came to Marina Rodriguez, who outstruck her 144-49, and to Yan Xiaonan, who outstruck her 113-61. But Mackenzie got 2 takedowns, and in that fight, it was like the whole time you knew. And there was a 10-8, I think, in that fight. It was weird because it ended up a majority decision. But here, let's see if I can actually say. Right, 48-47, 48-47, 47-47. That was the judges' scorecards for that fight the last time out. But like every time with Mackenzie Dern, every time when Jan was on the ground, and Mackenzie Dern really displayed so little adaptation and such a lame game plan against Jan, and ultimately she was submission hunting and just kind of conceding what was going on the feet. And it very nearly paid off. Like in the last minute, she got that armbar that was it looked super deep. It looked like Jan was in real trouble. That is what Mackenzie Dern can do. Let's talk about her wins. Her last 3 fights have gone to the judges' scorecards, and 4 of her last 5. She has a split decision win over Tisha Torres. She did get outstruck 76-50 in that fight. And then against Nina Nunes, April of 2021, she gets a first-round armbar. This is tough, right? Because, I actually came into this thinking I was going to say, look, skill set-wise, I don't think Angela Hill's going to be able to keep it off the ground. And so I think Angela Hill gets submitted. I think that once it's there, it's Dern's world, not Angela's, very clearly. And I don't think Angela Hill will be able to hold it off like Yan Xiaonan, a better overall mixed martial artist, was able to. Mackenzie Dern's losses are to really good fighters. But now it's you look at kind of the fight IQ that Mackenzie Dern displays sometimes, and it's you have to get yourself right for this. This is not a fight where you want to concede 2 of the 3 rounds on the feet and then hope to hunt for a submission. I would love to be able to say that Mackenzie Dern, -170, I'd love to be able to say that she should be able to win this fight 70 to 75 times out of 100, having the best individual skill set being her submission ability in this fight, even better than Angela Hill's, points kickboxing that she displayed. I would love to be able to say Dern by submission plus 150 is the best prop of the fight. But I worry about Mackenzie Dern here. This is a fight that could set you back so hard against a veteran like Angela Hill, who has remained so active. She got into the sport later, so you got to wonder if she can go up to a later age because she hasn't taken as much lifetime damage. That's pure speculation, but you look at some of these fighters that are able to fight, especially in the women's divisions, that come into the sport later, and they're able to stay in it later. Angela Hill by decision, and if this fight goes to the judges' scorecards, I think you have to assume that Mackenzie Dern was not able to exert her will. So I think either if you think that Angela Hill wins this, fight goes to decision minus 130. If you think Mackenzie Dern wins it, inside the distance plus 100. I want to be able to just say so easily that she should be able to sub Angela Hill.
Don't do this. You cannot do this,
But I'm not impressed by your performance, and I look forward to...
It's just against Jan, it was so clear what she needed to do, and she just seemed all too content to lose in the department she was losing. So Angela Hill by decision plus 200. I think that's of equal weight with Dern by submission. I think those are the two most likely outcomes of the fight. Maybe, Mackenzie Dern could play it smart too and win by decision. But why would she not be able to put Angela Hill away if it goes to the ground? And if it stays on the feet, it's not a fight she's going to win. This one's killing me because it's hard to even give a pick. I said that at her best, Mackenzie Dern should win this fight 70 to 75 times out of 100. But I like Angela Hill plus 145 is the verdict now because I think based on the fight IQ displayed by Mackenzie Dern, I think Angela Hill is a way tougher test than she ever gets credit for. These are the kind of fights that she can just really take advantage of. Until Mackenzie Dern displays better in-fight adaptation, better game planning, better fight IQ, this is a 50-50 fight. Go with Angela Hill plus 145. Hit it. Ow! And folks, that is it for episode 96 of RotoBallers Official MMA Podcast. Tap that. Looking forward to UFC Vegas 73 and a bunch of boxing and LFA 158 this weekend. And again, the card starts at 4. That means I will be in the RotoBaller MMA Discord doing the weekly DFS/sports betting Q&A from 2 to 3 p.m. I've got interlude episodes that I'm really proud of that have come out the last couple of weeks. Ones I'm going to be proud of coming out in the next few weeks. Big things coming up there. So go to YouTube, find the Tap That MMA podcast channel, like, subscribe. Anything you can do to put positive energy onto that. The Facebook page for the Tap That Podcast, go and like and follow that. You can follow me on Twitter at RotoBrady. It's where I make all my picks for boxing and MMA organizations outside of the UFC and talk about lots of other stuff. Speaking of which, check out my USFL gambling content. Week 6 kicking off this weekend. Folks, thanks for listening. It's going to be a quiet week in MMA, you can almost guarantee. But tune in on Saturday because there's going to be 12 fights at the UFC level, and that means cool things are going to happen. Thanks for listening. Peace.